I'm going to make the alterations based on my understanding, because I think there are some serious flaws with this map um, that might be misleading. So here's and also I'll go over the things that I think they got right. So first, welcome to my channel. Basically, I'm going to be doing election simulations. The first this what I'm going to be doing. What I'm doing now, which is talking, that's called an analysis. So if you see analysis in the title, that means I'm just going to be talking. If you see simulation, that means it's just going to be a no talking simulation with possibly some funky music on. I might do an analysis of the simulation later, but yeah, that's just the key. I'll probably post that in my description. But here we go. So first, I disagree with Texas being blank. Texas, I think it's not just a leaning, but I think it's a likely state. I mean, O'Rourke was a very, very unique candidate, and he failed to win by over 200,000 votes. I think it was 4 million to like 4.2 million. And if he can't win, then I don't think that really a Democrat can win in Texas as of yet. I think it's going to be a long time before the demographic changes allow for that to happen. So I would put Texas as likely red now. They put it as blank or toss-up. I would put it as likely red now. Arizona, all right, there are two states that I would consider toss-ups, actually, or three, actually. But first we'll get to Arizona. So Arizona, I would actually consider a toss-up because the Democrat won narrowly. Oh, where's my independent? It's on. Where is it going? Come on. All right, that's weird. It's not letting me do that. Come on. It's a glitch. That's the first time I've ever had a glitch and I'm recording. All right, there we go. So yeah, I would consider that as a toss-up because like a Democrat won narrowly, and I'm not sure if the Democrat Kristen Sinema was or Kristen I don't remember was actually very popular there or not. I think that I have heard some kind of worrying stuff about her, but I also heard that her opponent, Martha McSally, who's actually taking John McCain's old seat, which means that the two opponents in the 2018 race are both going to be senators, which I think that's pretty unusual. So yeah, that's very interesting. But I heard that Sinema was kind of radical, but I also heard that she was popular. So I'm not really sure what to think about that. But I think that Arizona is a swing state now. It used to be solidly Republican, given a lot of old people go down there. But now I think that it's a toss-up because of more immigration, or just continued immigration, not necessarily more, through the border there. Iowa, I agree with this, except in the midterms, I was very surprised. I thought that, like, the first election I ever really paid attention to was the 2016 election, and Iowa went red there, and so I assumed, based on its ruralness, that Iowa was basically a red state, kind of like the Dakotas. It's actually, I didn't know that it actually went for Obama in 08 and 12, and in the midterms, 3 out of the 4 districts went for Democrats, and the one that went Republican was Steve King, who's rather infamous nationwide. But it's probably because of that media attention that he won. I think that Iowa could be considered a swing as well. Actually, the Iowa's House districts are basically divided into corners. There's that. Oh wait, I'm pointing at the screen. You can't see that. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the one that Steve King won, Iowa 4, is this corner, and that's the least populated. So I could actually argue that this is making a turn for the Democratic Party, since the most populated counties are voting blue in the midterms. Wisconsin and Michigan, I think Wisconsin can be labeled as a toss-up, so can Pennsylvania, but I think Michigan, since even with the huge upset in 2016, Trump only won Michigan by 11,000 votes. It was like 2.279 million versus 2.268 million, and given the natural decline of a president's approval rating throughout their term, like it always happens that a president is much less popular near the end of their term, or the overall trend is for the president to lose popularity over time because the voters have all this hope, and it always gets kind of oversold, and yeah. But I think Michigan can be blue again. I'm not sure if they're ready to go blue again after the whole rejection of Clinton, but I think that there will be a lot of people that'll still vote for Trump, but um, I think that Clinton was just so unpopular up here that I think even Biden could win Michigan, even though he won't really appeal to them. I think that anyone but Clinton and Kristen Gillibrand, I think that she would be actually one of the worst candidates in 2020. I think that anyone but those two would be able to flip Michigan. Minnesota, the midterm results were actually very interesting in Minnesota. The Democrats won two kind of suburban House districts, but the Republicans actually flipped two seats in Minnesota in the midterms, which was kind of a big gain for the Democratic Party. So Minnesota's interesting. A lot of people say that it's actually becoming more Republican. I think the overall trend is in the North we have, in the Midwest, it's becoming a bit more Republican, and in the South, especially along the border, it's becoming a bit more Democrat. So you could see, remember, originally the Democrats were the party of the South around here. But we could see over time, if this trend is an indicator of anything, and it probably will be because of demographics, that it's possible that the Democrats will become the party of the Southwest. Like they'll eventually probably get Texas, but not anytime soon. But they would like Arizona could be a solidly Democratic state by like 2028 or something, and Ohio could be kind of like the new Georgia, which is a Republican leaning. Also, I think there's something interesting happening with Georgia, but we'll get there later. But Minnesota, for now, since the suburbs, as cool as it looks on a map that there's two Republican flips and two Democrat flips, I don't think they're the rural vote and the urban vote are like we see it in Illinois, right? That the rural population, basically everywhere but Chicago and there's this one other city, is Republican. But Illinois is considered a safe blue state because the voter turnout in the rural areas is just so low. So we see this trend, especially in Virginia as well, like especially in the Northeast Midwest, that rural Republicans in a blue state tend to have a very low turnout. I don't know why that is, but I am still gonna say Minnesota is blue right now. Georgia. All right, we'll get to that last. North Carolina. I honestly don't think that, given what I know about North Carolina, I honestly don't think that it can be considered a swing state anymore. I think that it is a Republican state as much as Texas is. I think a lot of people thought it would become a swing state after Obama won it in 2008, but that was kind of a sweep, and it wasn't. It was also a pretty close margin there as well. But he lost in 2012 and lost in 2016. I honestly don't think that it can be considered a swing state anymore. It's a red state. New Hampshire, it was considered a swing state in 2016, but this is one of the states like Nevada. Nevada and New Hampshire are the states where the Democrats are always underestimated, where they're considered swing states. In fact, in some polls, like Trump was leading in Nevada, and a lot of projections, like basically all projections in favor of Trump showed Trump taking Nevada. It would have been unthinkable before the election that he would take Michigan but not Nevada. But that's how it happens. The Democrats pulled through in Nevada because of the heavier vote than expected in Las Vegas, as well as I think this region, which is Elko, I think. Yeah, but New Hampshire, also this district in Maine, I think is Democratic now. There's really no clear indication that it went from Republican to Democratic. Then in the midterms, it went from a Republican to Democratic. And it's basically the House district and this district are, I think, either the same or almost the same shape. Or this is even based off of the House district. but I don't know. I think basically the exact same spot voted Democrat. That's rare that you see electoral college and house maps lining up, but that's what happened. Also, Nebraska, Omaha, it's always a little bit of a tricky one because it's urban, but the last few times it has voted Republican, so I'm going to put it as actually likely there. And last, we have Georgia and Florida. Georgia, and this is something that is going to surprise a lot of people. I actually think that Georgia, unless there's a really unpopular candidate, will go blue in 2020. I think that it is leaning blue because I think that there will be a lot of frustration over what is perceived as a vote stealing in the 2018 midterms when Kemp, who was the Secretary of State, instituted these what many are calling purges, but basically instituted new laws that I think they said 1 million people left and 300,000 of them are going to vote for Abrams. But like if there's no way that basically if even only 20% of the people that he purged were Democrats, and it's likely actually more than 50% because like why else would he do it if they weren't Democrats? But even if only 20% of the people he purged were Democrats, and that would be amazing, then Abrams would still have won in Georgia. And I think that a lot of people, because these elections are run by the federal government and not the state government, so I think that Kemp wouldn't have control over that, and plus there's a new Secretary of State since he won the governorship. So given those things and that frustration and also the high black vote and the black population is increasing in Georgia, I think that I think that a Democrat would probably win there. In Florida, we're having a similar thing, except instead of a response to a purging, there's an unpurging of felons, and felons tend to vote Democratic. 1.7 million. And Florida flipped a Democratic seat, but I do still think that there is some solid Republican momentum in Florida, more than there was in 2012 and such. I think that there is a movement, especially among Cubans, because Cubans are one of the only minorities that tend to favor the Republicans. I think that I would put it as a swing state here, but at this point, it doesn't really matter. I think you may think it's crazy that Florida's a swing state, but Georgia might be a Democratic state, but I honestly think that's where it's going. The demographic changes will probably end up so that there is something like this. And again, this whole map is subjective on whether or who runs. Like if this is kind of it's not a Sanders map. I think Sanders could do better in Ohio, but this is kind of a generic Democrat map. As much as I hate those things, this is kind of what it is. Because that was kind of what the midterms were. They were all voting for different candidates. So basically, if there's any reflection of who would win a generic Democratic race, it would be the midterms, because they weren't all voting for one particular candidate. They were voting basically Democratic or Republican. I don't think a lot of people knew their House representative unless they went viral, like a few, like Steve King and AOC over here in NY14. But anyway, stay tuned for another analysis or simulation. What I'm probably going to do is I'm probably going to do a Democratic primary simulation, what I actually think will happen, and all of the candidates that I actually think will enter the race in 2020, and a Republican simulation, and then we'll do an actual general election. This won't be like hypothetical. These are the candidates that I actually think will run. But anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. This was kind of an intro to my channel. Please subscribe and click the notifications, because I'll probably post probably more than once a week. Anyway, I'll see you. Election simulations, share, all that stuff. See you. Bye.